Hi, and welcome back to Just Ask the Question. I'm your host, Brian Karem. With me today, actor, comedian, musician, podcast host, man of many hats, star of stage, screen, and television, Hal Sparks. Hal, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Your favorite Shakespearean actor that tells dick jokes and was a Disney dad and on Queer as Folk. I can do it all, folks. You should see me dance.
Well,
Um,
today, well, here's what I wanted to do today. You said
yeah.
something the other day that I want to start with in the discussion. And look, you were in the Sexy Liberal Comedy Tour. You are involved in politics. And one of the things that we've talked about is how did the Democrats win in the fall? And there are those who believe that you jettison. I mean, I read you before we went on some of the headlines from some of the people on the left who say that you should jettison the middle, abandon civility, and just go after the far right. And I've always thought that that's a little, well, like you said, it's one-dimensional chess. It's not really a smart way to move. But your
Right.
thoughts?
My thoughts are this is by people who want to institute the same playbook they've been doing the whole time and hope it works again this time. The reality is that one of the reasons Biden won in 2020 was the real push, even amongst independents, to make politics boring again. To get somebody competent in there who can do the job, so we don't have to live our lives white knuckling our government. And that also entails extremity. And we live in an era where the crust thinks it's the pizza, and it ain't. And the jettisoning the middle means ignoring the voters, because the Democratic Party this time especially, and I would say through the next 3 cycles at least, has one job: turn red districts purple and purple districts blue. That's it. You get
You shouldn't
0
turn
points.
blue. Shouldn't you turn blue or blue? Blue,
No,
bluer?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. You get 0 points for turning blue bluer. It's a waste of time and money. It's a waste of effort. And anybody who thinks you're going to get an AOC in West Virginia is a maniac and should be ignored, because you won't. And what you will, and these days, it's not like we're in the late 80s where you would hand it over to a reasonable Republican or somebody who might look at, well, I'm from an agricultural and I don't know, hiking state now that coal is largely dead, no matter how much Trump tries to revive it.
Good, clean coal.
Good,
With
clean,
that,
beautiful,
back.
sexy coal. I have a bowl full of it with like non-dairy creamer every morning,
Along with
and it's
my
delicious.
Diet Pepsi, it's delicious.
It's the only fiber I get between that and my fish. Quick. Sorry, I should have waited till you finish your drink. Anyways, the fish, which again, but the reality is that we need to go to where the voters are, and diversity does not mean finding someone black who talks just like you and then patting yourself on the back. It means listening to diverse opinions and life experiences. And the Democratic Party, in its lean to the left, and its fear of, I would argue, the far left, was mirroring the fear of the far right that you
Yeah.
saw amongst Trumpistan. And the reality is that Republicans are going to spend the next decade digging themselves out from under Trump. Some of them are already jettisoning him outright. Others are doing it quietly. There is clearly a push where the Republican Party wants us to save them from Donald Trump. There are a bunch of Republican voters, I swear to God, who are going to go into the booth this fall and vote for a Democrat in their area just to clean out the place temporarily, thinking we'll come back with our policies because they'll work later, and they really do believe it.
Yes. If that
we have elections.
Yeah, well, I think we'll have, but if you can bring in a Democrat who isn't so far to the left that they go, screw it, I still got to have Donald Trump because look what I'm facing.
This is nuts, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you jettison that, and you go for, the big language has been for a long time, we need fighters. That's what we need, is fighters. No, we don't. We need salesmen, we need debaters, and we need legislators. There has never been a fight at the UFC or the boxing in the Olympics all the way through pro where this guy has said, touch gloves and come out legislating, and both of the guys sit down at a desk and have competing bills for healthcare. It's dumb. As a matter of fact, democracy was created so we stop fighting. The point is that you want the best ideas to win out every time. And you can tell that Democrats, by and large, have the best ideas, because whenever they're forced to actually govern, it's amazing how quick Republicans start to sound like Democrats, Even Donald Trump, I say take the guns and do due process later. Like the worst nightmare of what they thought
Well, he sounded.
Beto and Newsom were going to do, and Obama, and not even close. But listen to him. Listen to Hawley talking about SNAP benefits during the original shutdown. It's because reality's a bitch, and these guys, when they have to deal with it, they're like, "What ideas work?" Like, SNAP, Medicare,
go to the
Medicaid.
Democrats.
Yeah, exactly. Go to the Democrats. Ask them what they've got in their quiver.
To your point, Donald Trump, when he was in the rope line the other day, and he has taken very few questions on the rope line before he gets on the helicopter anymore. We call it chopper talk. He does it very infrequently. He sits down a lot. He's very lethargic. He's very low keyed. But when he took that question, he said, "I'm going to get the guns." He sounded like Michael Douglas in the American President.
Holy hell!
I'm going to convince him I'm right, and I'm going to get the guns. And I said, Jesus, the NRA, and you noticed he backed off of all the stuff in Minneapolis after that, because the NRA said, whoa.
Yeah. You had Dana Loesch having the vapors, on her, Lana Douche on her own little like private Idaho that she's built, and her little weird like radio show that goes out to God knows who. It's like somewhere below the blaze.
People. Yeah,
exactly. She's on there just, she looks like she's been hit in the forehead with a 2x4. Going.
By Laura Loomer, but that's another story.
I hate how he talks. They've got to work on their messaging around it. Like, asshole, it isn't the messaging, it's the policy. He really does believe this, and he goes further than any Democrat would. You went from the president who told you to buy a shotgun for home defense so you could spackle your walls with an intruder if they got in, and to the guy like, I think, take the guns, then go to court. Like,
how about it on January 6th when he let them in,
back the blue into a corner and beat them and then shock them with their own tasers, right? Back the blue into a corner. That's nobody ever finishes the quote.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing that you mentioned something about if we have elections. There is Donald Trump did mention that he wants to take over and nationalize the elections. Now, we both know that can't really happen. But of course, the effort, I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but when I look at it, this is just another attempt by Donald Trump to muddy the waters so that they figure, well, my vote won't count. They won't do anything. I won't vote. But I think it's going to backfire on him. I don't think
I do too.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest problems that they have, and I've been bringing this up for a while, is Real ID. Real ID is, was this thing that they kind of came up with, that they needed to update identification. And it's a natural, normal thing as technology grows and the ability to fake IDs. Joel Greenberg and Matt Gaetz, anybody that, if you're able to just print them without any record, using a little stamp machine in an office in Florida after hours, then obviously there's some stuff that needs to be fixed. And
I saw the Rockford Files. It's all 70s.
Exactly. So coming up with this Real ID thing, they had to punt it once. Now, why did they have to punt it and slow the rollout when it was the date had already been pushed a couple of times and then they did it? Well, it's because of maggots. It's because right-wingers, their fringe, their crust, thinks that it's a plot by the UN to track everybody, and it's the devil's mark, 666, and you shall not be able to buy or sell things without his mark, and blah blah blah. And so they're not getting it. Meanwhile, Democrats got their ID, and the biggest push you're going to see from the Democratic Party, I think, if there's any brains at all, and I think there are, is that we're going to make sure everybody has proper ID before the election, even if we think morally that you should be able to get it for free, and there should be a federal ID, I think, that everybody gets, that no police officer could take away from you for a traffic violation in some area, which is still the law in a bunch of places, which they used to just pull over every black person a month before an election and go, you'll get it back when you show up at court in December, right? So you can't vote because you don't have an ID, and then they would illegally enforce it, which is why it became a contentious subject. But maggots are not going to get it. They're continuing to push back on this. So they're not going to be able to enter a federal building or a federal site, which includes most voting places. Even if they do it in a church or a school, it still qualifies as a place you would need that kind of ID. And they're going to go, well, you can use your NRA ID, but you can't use your school ID, even though that shows residence. The NRA one doesn't do shit. So they're going to have a Real ID problem this fall, both Real ID and a genuine ID problem this fall. And they know it. They also are going to have a bunch of walkaways. People who are just not going to show up because of the Epstein files, because of the affordability hoax, because of all this stuff that they were, especially the right-leaning independents. And I've said for a while, we don't need them to see the light. We just need them to see the lie. I don't think I'm going to convince these people to vote for our side, but I do think at some point a bunch of them are standing down, and they're standing down.
Either not vote or vote, either way, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or vote the other way. Because there's going to be a bunch of Republicans this fall that are going to all right, enough of this. We need to purge this for a while, and then we'll get back on top. We need to clear out the wheat from the chaff.
So if you could talk to every Democratic candidate, this is what I've said. I said the Democratic candidate that comes out and says, "Hi, state your name. I'm running for, state your name. I promise to uphold the Constitution of the United States if elected," then I think you'd have a good shot at getting elected, no matter where you are.
Exactly.
So, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I would say take your oath as you start running. Like go up and go, you know what? Even before I take office, as a candidate, I'm going to put my hand on the Bible or my book of choice for my faith or lack of faith, whatever it is. The
Playboy magazine.
Yeah, right. Sure. On one of the articles, obviously don't fold it out to,
that's right.
Unless you're running in a Trump district, in which case they probably go, "That's my dude."
But we'd have to have Playgirl then. But
if they come out and go, I swear to uphold the law, the Constitution protected against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I genuinely mean this, and I'm saying this to the American people because that's the problem we have right now. We have corrupt grifters who are not interested in the best interests of the American people, but in feathering their own nests. Look at Donald Trump and World Liberty Financial, which he sold a half stake to a UAE prince. Yeah, exactly. Enough. He's running a Tether coin scam so that he can skim money off of the top.
Well, let's tell people what that is. He sold a $500 million stake in his crypto, 49% of his crypto company, to a member of the royal family in the UAE. And then it's tied to dollars, so they can flip them into dollars pretty quickly. Like you said, it's just a shell game. It's
where all the money from the 50 boats full of oil that we got, went to Qatar, for example, was turned into Trump coin temporarily, turned back into dollars through just basically a minor money laundering cycle. And he gets to just shave off 5 to 10% in an exchange rate or whatever he wants to call it, the fee to go through there in the first place for the handling of it. He's charging the American people shipping and handling. Remember that back in the day when you would get a product online and they would charge you for the product and they'd go plus, it's a $5. Yeah, that's right. $5 for this plus $20 shipping and handling. Wait a minute, I'm paying $25 for you to go, yeah, I think that's it, and put it in a box. Like, what are you talking about? So that's what he's doing. He's charging shipping.
Oil. This is oil. Go ahead.
Is that oil? Is that oil money? Okay. Yeah. This is your oil money. Okay. I'm going to get 10% for picking it up out of this box and putting it in this box because it went through me. Okay. So the crypto coin trick that is going on and the Tether part of it is straight up money laundering. That's what it's for. The original crypto, Bitcoin and all these other ones were initially there based on their own super value, that they were half FOMO idiots and then being chased around by the greater idiot crowd, which is like there will always be somebody dumber than me to pay for this
scheme.
Yes, right. The Ponzi scheme of crypto, which is crashing right now. Yeah. And you could argue that that's on purpose and that certain people who are in control of it want it to crash so they can buy a bunch of it low again, lift it up, and then do it again. And they just fleece these dickheads who are into crypto, and more power to them. Quite frankly, I hope every maggot, and if there's a maggot listening, I don't know why you haven't put your entire life savings into Trump's meme coin. Do you maggot or not, bro? Put it all in there because you have faith in this guy or not. Put your money where your mouth is. And I would rather it go there and sit and just fill Trump's fucking, pie hole with fish and then go to elect Republicans, which is exactly the other problem that they're having, is that he's scooping up all the big donor money and all the low donor money, the hardcore maggots. He's scooping up all that money for his own use. Right. The stuff that would elect, Republicans.
$1 billion on the presidency in the last year. $2 billion. He
At
never
least,
managed to
at
make
least.
that
And
much
he's suing
in
for
his whole
10
life.
more.
Yeah, and he's suing the Treasury and the IRS, and that's a good point. Any person whose IRS personal stats are released inadvertently or overtly by the U.S. government, you can sue. But did Donald Trump get? And I don't, if you want to sue the Treasury and the IRS for releasing your personal data, fine. I think all presidential candidates should be forced to release that, but that's not
Mhm.
the law. So fine,
Right.
someone released it, illegally. There should be a payment for that. There should be some, but $10 billion. Did Donald Trump really suffer $10 billion worth of suffering and damages? No, he won the election. Where does he prove any damage? And at the end of the day, he now runs the Treasury and the IRS. His own people will sit there and go, we'll settle for $2 billion. It'll be a great job. We look good. He looks good. He gets another $2 billion. Bilking the Treasury for him and screwing us.
Right.
It's
And
the
he's
only way
like,
I can see it.
yes. And I think that's the way a lot of maggots are seeing it as well. So I think that's a clear aspect of this as well.
That and guns are going to sink him.
Exactly. And Epstein.
Yeah.
And we'll get to the
Oh,
Epstein stuff in
yeah.
a minute because Jesus.
We have
the
several
biggest
days. That's
I know. Oh my God. And he still thinks, let me state a couple of things. I would like to about that, if I may, in a moment. Just remind me to do that. But I want to focus on this kind of grifter aspect that they're tired of. The affordability aspect is prices never go down. Let's just start there. There is never a point. All you can do is bring inflation down to a reasonable number, but you're not going to convince, even with your, if he installs Warsh in there, who, by the way, is also in the Epstein files, tie in later. If he can install his own dude, but if that dude wants his legacy to be the destruction of the US dollar and the collapse of the American economy, he's not going to follow what Trump says. And Trump's going to be just as mad at him as he was at Powell, who he also put in office the first time, right?
Yes.
That they're going to get in there. The problem with both the Fed, some senators, I would argue, most senators, and the SCOTUS is that once you put them in there, unless they're a real team player, unless they're a diehard, they're going to worry more about their legacy once they get in there because they can outlast you. The president's term is only 4 years.
Yeah, he's a temp worker at best. But
exactly.
And to your point, I mean, there are those who are now. Look, I've talked to a lot of senators and congressmen. They're a lot braver. They show a lot more courage privately than they do publicly. But that being
and stuff
said,
does go on privately. Stuff does happen. Most stuff, I would argue, doesn't even happen in private. It happens in the areas people aren't paying attention to. Because like committee hearings and bits of bills and stuff that they slip in there that Trump doesn't like, but he just signs it anyways because he's stupid and doesn't read anything.
It happens at dinner. Yeah, it happens at dinner at the Capitol Grill in the Palm. I've seen it happen. Right. Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. Shh, got it. All right. But
yeah.
All right. But I find it almost irreducibly stupid that they have only now irreducibly stupid. You just can't fundamentally. Only now do they seem to get the fact that there is an end coming to Donald Trump. There is an end game. They've never seen it until now. And I think plenty of them are scared about what could happen in the fall. And before we get to Epstein, that's why I also think that Donald Trump is making a concerted effort to control the narrative through the media, whether he's buying it through, all right, for example, TikTok, his friends now own CBS. He put Barry Weiss there. He has, and other friends own most of the corporate media. And then with the independent media, as we saw last week with Georgia Fort and of course, Don Lemon, I always mention her first because she's actually the reporter who's busted. He has very little. And he's going after independent media and he doesn't care if they go to jail. He just wants to bankrupt them and silence them so that he's got the best chance going into the midterm. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's why he went on Bongolio's podcast yesterday to kind of clean up that mess because, Bongino was a terrible choice. Everybody knew it. He had training wheels the entire time he was in office. He complained about staring at his walls because there was somebody else doing the actual job. He's blazingly full of shit. but he serves a purpose being blazingly full of shit out in independent media as a sheepdog to make sure to bark everybody back in line who's a loose Republican mouth out there. The problem is it's too little too late, and because he was part of the Epstein thing, nobody's going to buy it the same way they did before. He's a he like everybody's like huge numbers on Rumble. I'm like, huge numbers for Rumble is not huge numbers. And even then, they own the place, so they can concoct whatever numbers they want. Rumble's entire viewership goes through like Iranian bot farms and Saudi bot farms. Like that's who pays for it on the back end to help Trump stay inflated. It's hilarious who like runs these things. Even like the Iranian regime doesn't even run these things. They just like license them out to the Russians to do with whatever they want. And that's what's paying Rumble to exist. It would have collapsed under its own weight a long time ago. It'd be
and Truth Social.
Yeah, Truth Sinkhole is hilarious because it's just I got to tell you, as one of the few people in independent media that I've said from the beginning that at one point he was going, they're going to live stream on there basically. And I think the guys at Rumble talked him out of it because it would be a direct competitor for what little audience that they have. Just like he ruined X for a while for right wingers. I've said I would broadcast on there, even if it cost me $8 a month, like you have to do on some of these networks to broadcast, just so that I could annoy him with my broadcast being in his feed. I would go in there every day and just put it in his feed as an answer to his feed. And I think that's almost singularly why they didn't do it. You're welcome. I'll just pat myself on the back. But
good job, good job.
Thank you. It's exact. I mean, I'm why Dan Bongino does not do clips from his show, by the way.
Yeah.
Because
why?
Because I go after clips. I don't nitpick from people's feeds. I take whatever argument they put a 7 or 8 or 12-minute clip out. That's what I do on my show. And I don't prep for it. I don't watch it ahead of time so that I can snipe just the points I know are coming. I take it on as it is. I will pair my knowledge of the issues against whatever they bring up raw. I'm not going to set it up. And in a 2-hour setup, that's your show. But if you say this is a great example of what this show was. That's what most people are doing when they pick a clip from their show. Then I will pound that, and I don't have time to do 2 hours of lies from Bongholio's show every night. So, I mean, it'd be a career in and of itself. So he used to put out clips, and I started hammering them. That's where Bongholio came up. That's where he blocked me. That's where instantly he went back to just doing the whole show. They don't put out clips at all. And I will take credit for that 100%. But the point is that to your independent media point, is that not only does he need to attack anybody who's coming for him that he feels threatened by, but he's got to flood the market now. He's friendly with everybody, and he's pushing all of them. Benny Johnson literally at one point, and Charlie Kirk, even before his passing, was saying, I got to wait and see what the White House wants me to say about this. They were literally taking direct talking points and admitting it almost as a point of pride. Like, I'm so on the team, which is, again, also I've said when there's cracks in the dam, we have a responsibility to walk up with a crowbar and just start wiggling that thing and open it up wider. And one of them between maggots and their own
mark. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, right. You do a great job at it, by the way. Congratulations. I don't think I've had a chance to congratulate you on Trump name dropping you in on Truth Sinkhole. You're right. You're the next Kimmel, my friend. He's definitely it's interesting with you though, because he's threatened by you, but also impressed.
I think he just likes the Playboy connection.
I agree. He can't shake it.
Playboy. Because he wouldn't call me by my name for the first 4 years of the administration. He would just look at me and go, Playboy, what do you got? What do you got, Playboy?
Yeah, exactly. And because he's desperately wanted to be an interview in Playboy that everybody was like, ooh, isn't he impressive? Yeah. Right. That's the defining characteristic. Again, my point about the fact that people call him a narcissist and all this, I disagree. As a narcissist, I will tell you that as somebody who could stare lovingly at their own reflection in a river so heavily that I fall into the river and drown, and I'm aware of this limitation, which is why I don't go to rough rivers, only Stillwater.
Now there's a Kentucky reference.
Yeah, that's right.
Rough River.
Absolutely. And so I think he's never passed a shiny surface, seen his face, and ever gone, all right. Like he passes a shiny surface and he's like, damn it. And he hates everybody who knows he's ugly and awful and gross and smelly. And and he shat himself during one of the meetings yesterday and had to run the press out and then bring him back in after, I guess, Walt Nada hosed him down again. But the sorry, but it's true. All right, so
there's a mental image I didn't need.
I'm sorry. I blame myself. I apologize. So the issue that, beyond, that MAGA has with these independent media people is that there is a little bit of, wait, we used to hate the man and say that, the elites control our government. And now we're still saying the same thing, but we're having to say it while avoiding saying Trump's name. Because for all that, Epstein was connected to Mossad, Epstein was connected to Russia, Epstein was connected, he was blackmailing, blah, blah, blah. But Donald Trump was his best friend for 25 goddamn years.
Yeah.
Even if, like, watching these people from Peanut Butter Dickheads podcast, the Paul Patrick Bet David or whatever Patrick Bet David do, and Glenn Beck and all these guys, watching them talk about Epstein without ever mentioning Trump's name is just amazing. Like, it's like watching people try to play hockey without ever touching the ice. It's like, it can't be done, and you will land on your face.
Even with all the oil they use to lube it up.
That's right. Yeah. No, watch maggots in spite of themselves, because a lot of the modern MAGA movement was based out of QAnon, was either QAnon adjacent or was helped in line by the QAnon crowd. Is all, we got to get rid of this cabal of big pedophiles that control our entire government by electing Epstein's wingman, and then and pretend that Howard Lutnick wasn't his neighbor that hung around him a bunch, that Elon Musk isn't really about free speech. He took over X so that he could basically curtail any bad news about him and Tesla to keep the stock price high. And basically it's just become a Nazi playground for Tesla investors to like Musk boy him his earnings up. So a lot of them can hide from the truth. But there's a paranoia that they cultivated around this QAnon stuff that makes them grab onto details, whether they like it or not. And you can see it in the Charlie Kirk death, that they, even in the situation where there is an ongoing trial of the guy who shot him, and you go, well, at least watch the trial play out. And then if something seems hinky after the trial, because the dude copped to it, it was his gun, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Wait till that works out before you, listen to the Warren Commission before you go, what? Right. But they're not even doing that. They're so paranoid. They can't let go of any of this stuff. And that includes the Epstein stuff. That includes Lutnick and Paolo, what's his name, who was Melania's
lover,
modeling agent, who with Epstein introduced Melania to Trump. We now know from the dump on Friday has been confirmed 6 ways to Sunday. And he made that guy.
Brett Ratner.
Yeah, but he made that her modeling agent special envoy to global deals or some nonsense, right?
Right. Well, what you're seeing is that all with the Epstein dump, and there are, and you've segued into it fairly nicely, that there's millions and millions of, it would take thousands of people viewing thousands of pages every day to get it out any length of time. So it's going to drag on. It's going to continue to, and Trump really doesn't want that. But to your point, and the thing that I found most interesting so far are the number of people who have close associations with Donald Trump who are in the Epstein files. And I know some people are, they're overwhelmed by the fact that Bill Clinton is in there and him and his wife are going to testify before before Congress. I get it. That's, whoever's guilty of whatever they're guilty of, I'm fine with charging them. But I'd really like to concentrate on the moron that's currently in office and not the moron that was in office 30 years ago.
Well, I played a clip from that 2-hour Bannon interview, the heavily edited Bannon interview, 10 hours of video, but there's only 2 hours in there, and he changes shirts and glasses multiple times during this one interview. And in it, Epstein blames Bill Clinton for 2008.
Yeah.
For creating the concept of subprime, not the games that everybody played with it and the insurance, shell game that was created on top of it. Blaming basically veterans and poor people for buying houses they couldn't afford after the crash, by and large. A lot of people lost their homes in the cascade afterwards because their loans were cut short, or they had home equity loans that were withdrawn because supposedly their house wasn't worth as much as they said it was, initially, by no fault of their own. They didn't miss a payment. They hadn't done anything wrong, but suddenly they lost their job in an area they had just moved to and that kind of stuff because of 2008. But it's Clinton's fault. And this is, this comes out at the same time they're trying to lay Epstein at Clinton's feet. And again, I've said this a bunch of times, and I think most Democrats feel this way, that if Clinton was engaged in sex with underage girls, or even of age girls that were basically broken in by Epstein, which is what that depreciated woman check joke that Epstein did in his book about Donald Trump is like, I break them in for him. And then as soon as they turn 18, then I hand them over to Trump because I'm done with them. If you're messing around with that, then bye, just forget, gone. Yeah. I don't love Clinton for the man. There are policies I appreciated as a Democrat, but any other Democrat in the same position would have done by and large the same thing. And they do. Like the policies from Clinton, there's a continuity amongst all Democratic presidents. There's a disjointed all over the place between Republican ones because they run on a value and then go against it. Right.
And well, they run to get elected. That's, there are
right.
two parties in this country. One has no heart, one has no head. The Democrats have no head for anything, and the Republicans show no heart. They are a kill or be killed group of predators who just want to get into office and then do not know how to legislate or govern. And as you were saying earlier, like, when the Democrats get in, it's amazing how quick Republicans will shift and and align themselves with Democrats. I remind everyone, when was the last time you saw any piece of bipartisan legislation? Why, that would be the $1 trillion infrastructure bill that passed during Biden's administration.
Well, unless you don't count the discharge petition for the Epstein files, which was amazing, right? More Republicans give a shit about being seen to support the release.
The point.
Yes, right, exactly. That even Trump had to sign that. It was like the most bipartisan thing that came out. He did begrudgingly and was forced to do it. That's the other thing, is that, like, it should be enough.
Campaign to do it.
Right. Well, he, in all fairness, they edited out the part where he was like, well, not so much the Epstein files. Remember that Fox and Friends interview where he was like, would you release the JFK files? Yes. MLK files? Yes. The moon landing? Yes. Whatever. What fluoride? Yes. Whatever. I'm kidding. But he finally gets to Epstein and he's like, yeah. I think I will. I mean, maybe not that, because there's a lot of phony stuff in there. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. Like, and Fox and Friends edited the exception out. And for the nerve of this dude to sue over a normal, like, 60 Minutes interview where they truncated an answer of Kamala Harris's for a short, for a shorter, more direct answer.
Lawsuit against public participation. It's a slap suit. He had in court, he could not have won it. But he did it to intimidate CBS and Paramount.
And it worked.
It worked because they were trying to sell it. And they needed government. Right. They needed the government to sanction it and bless it.
That's right.
So they bowed. Right. That to me was it. And not only that, but he only found out that it had been edited because they released the full CBS released the full transcript on the internet.
Which Fox never did.
Yes.
Which Fox never did with their release of the clip, because it was originally live-ish. They played the whole thing, and then they were like, oops, and then they released the clip of it, editing that part out. Too bad, right? They should have edited it before the show, but they couldn't because it broke up the flow. Now, they edit the crap out of his interviews now, especially.
Well, you have to tell. You have to, because we sit there and ask him questions, and if you see he doesn't, this is a thing that really has me upset, is our lack in that White House press briefing room to call it on the carpet. We gave so much grief to Biden about seemingly sliding into senility. This guy's taken the cold water plunge, and he's off and gone, and we don't. But every time he appears, we have to, in effect, interpret what he's saying to try and find 4 or 5 words that make a cogent sentence. And then the rest of it, and then so it's making it exceedingly difficult, which is why you don't see him in front of the press that often, which is why, by the way, I believe we saw J.D. Vance in the briefing room instead of the president to talk about the shooting. And when, of Renee Good. And when he came out there and they said, are you going to turn down the temperature? He said, yeah, by ratcheting up the pressure. I'm going, what the hell does this guy understand about lowering temperature? And then it was Trump who had to clean that mess up. So, and that tells you how bad it is. If he's cleaning up JD's mess, what's going to happen after Donnie's gone? Because I sure don't think this man lasts for the next 1,082 days.
I completely agree. And I would, I think there is probably, and this is rather grim, but I genuinely believe there is a group inside the White House that hopes he doesn't make it to the midterms, but he skids to, into the end, close to it, so that they can go, if you vote for a Democrat, you will undo all of his legacy, and his death will mean nothing. They'll Charlie Kirk the shit out of it, essentially.
So you've been talking to Pam Bondage.
Yes. Clearly, well, I would say Susie Wiles, who looks at him when he's answering a question like she's watching a toddler juggle buck knives, right? And she's, or play with like a kerosene near a fire, like he's peeing on it, right? And this is a real thing. Either their worst case scenario is that he loses, that they lose the midterms, which I think they're going to do, clearly. And then he croaks right after.
Don't shit all over themselves. That's yes, and he croaks right after. I could see that. But to your point, as we started out this conversation, in any normal world, you would think that he would get trounced in the midterms. But we're talking about Democrats, and they're notorious for eating their own. And so I'm still concerned that they are so worried about being progressive and telling us what to think instead of how did Donald Trump win? Because he went to Arizona, he heard people, he's a grifter, but he is a salesman. As you said, he's not the fighter, he's the salesman. And he was able to sell people on shit he would never deliver and has never delivered, could not possibly deliver on. But they bought it. And the Democrats, I know I keep hearing how bad the Republican Party is, and I agree. But how bad is the Democratic Party that they can't beat Donald Trump?
Right. Well, I think this is a problem, and I think it's by and large, at least from like kind of the voters that I've noticed a real shift towards practicality, which is why you're hearing that loud voice to stop civility and just fight and all that kind of stuff. The reason you're hearing that is because they're getting pushback finally. They're getting pushback from people going, okay, you cannot drag us down. You cannot solve social ills through political processes. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. Every time you bring up education in this country, Democrats, by and large, will say we need more funding, but you can't tie local schools to the tax base of the local area because poor kids will always have poor schools, and you got to find a way to come up with that. And even Republicans have had to answer to this reality because if you took 7 red states, specifically Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, and pick 2 more for yourself at random, especially Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana. If you took those out,
and Kentucky, and Tennessee,
and
West Virginia,
and West Virginia, right? If you took those out, right? Yeah. Well, the Carolinas are a little bit better because they have rich areas because of the chemical companies and all that kind of stuff and the big industry that's down there.
Kentucky too. If you take out Frankfort and Covington and Louisville, the Jefferson County, it would be 50th among states. Yeah,
no question. So but by and large, Democrats are like, even Republicans are like, No Child Left Behind and those kind of things. They come up with federal ways through the Department of Education to help fund those red state schools because of that exact problem. While not admitting to that's what they're doing, they're really making up for the fact that well-to-do states with a big tax base pay for really good schools. And though we pay a lot for students, the kids in the areas that pay for a lot more, $19,000 to $27,000 per kid, have better college turnout, a higher employment, long-term careers, better mental health, long-term, better family cohesion, all that kind of stuff. And then the states that pay $9,000 and then get an extra $1,000 in block grants from the states or whatever the hell they're doing, it's such a shuffle. those kids end up working menial jobs and scrambling from paycheck to paycheck over and over and over again. And if you took out those 7 states, you know how Trump's always like, we're 40th in the world for education. If you took out those 7 states, we're third. We're third. If you take out 7 Republican states, we're third in the world. And it's because those numbers are so drastically bad that they pulled the average down that far.
Yeah.
And the answer,
those are so drastic, they're down in the lower third.
Yes. It's like they're near third. Yes, they're near third world numbers. If you're not around a metropolitan area, your school by and large sucks. And they know this. And they don't, and the only fix for it is a Democratic fix. And when Democrats are called on, to fix education, they're like, we need more funding. We need better teachers. We need better pay for teachers. We need after school programs. We need Head Start, those kind of things. We need these are the ways you can solve it with legislation, right? This, as a politician, I can solve it by offering a bill forward, trying to explain why it would help, show pilot programs, that kind of stuff. That's what you can do as a legislator. What do Republicans say? We need more parental involvement. Okay, asshole. Well, even in charter school, make it somebody else's problem, right? Yeah. That's the other thing. Create an education tax on top of the education tax, which is what a charter school effectively is. But they're like, we need more parental involvement. You hear this all. You need parents involved. Okay, can you legislate that? No. Then shut the fuck up. If you can't legislate it, you're a legislator. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear your solution to a social, political, or social or non-political problem. If you're a legislator, I want you to solve the problem materially.
I don't mind it, and it's an accurate thing to say. I've coached high school football. I've coached kids. There are parents that are, well, you either have helicopter parents or you have non-existent parenting. I get all that, but to your point, it's not enough to simply say we need more. What does that mean? We need more parental involvement.
It's like if
I was going to do
right.
We need money.
Like solving the clean water problem by telling people to drink more water.
Yes.
Unless you're going to, and again, I'm like, are you going to put parents in jail for not helping their kids practice for a math exam? Then if not, shut the fuck up. You're not doing anything. Only tell me things you can actually instigate, something you can actually do.
Yeah. Could we see a plan? Could we see something done? I agree.
And that's why Republicans, when they get pinched, always sound like a Democrat, because there are only a few ways to solve these. There are no partisan issues. There are only partisan solutions. And the point of democracy is to take multiple solutions and find the best one or the best parts of several and create one that has the best outcome you can legitimately come up with the tax base, the amount of money you have, and the voters that are bought in on it.
That reminds me of you're right. And that reminds me of the immigration issue. I got yesterday this wonderful piece of crap propaganda from the White House. They send out, their daily emails to reporters, and 73% of the people in the United States want violent criminals prosecuted. Well, no shit. I think that's a low number. I think most Americans want violent criminals.
All of them do.
Yeah. Who doesn't? The criminals. And I don't think there's 27% of them. But,
no.
But they're using that to justify the violence and the immigration. And then they'll tell you Obama, Bush, and Biden all deported more violent criminals than we have. Well, that's not, to me, that isn't a calling card.
Didn't do it.
What that is telling you haven't followed due process.
Right.
You have ruined the Constitution and you've shot American citizens. So why are you bragging how ineffective you are?
Yeah, well, there's two issues I see there. One is Biden, Bush, and Obama managed to do it without these stupid North Korean military parades. Right, without these North Korean military parades down the middle of a suburb to get one guy using 100 agents. The other problem that Trump has, and this is based on his sales pitch and his promise based on reality, because these are trains that left the station at the same time on the same track going the opposite direction, and they're headed for each other at some point, no matter what. So many of these things, the Epstein files, his tariffs and all this stuff, solving all of our economic woes and eliminating the income tax, all this nonsensical 1830s horseshit that he sells. But one of them is that, in the case of, immigration, he said that Biden let in 25 to 35 million. I think it's even more people into the country, and they're all psychopaths and murderers and killers. And
they drained the prisons. They allowed them to come in.
They set up a water slide all the way from Ecuador, and they dumped all their loonies into it, and they slid into the United States. Like, the idea that they would set these guys loose in their own country to walk to America. All right, Mr. You know, this guy who raped a bunch of kids and stabbed people in the face, like, watch yourself until you get to the American border. Promise me, because Mexico's our friend. Get the hell out of here. So he goes all the way up. Like, he goes 25, 35
There's
million
a mental
plus.
image.
Right. Here's the problem. Yeah. They let out all their psychopaths, and they trusted them to make it to the United States before they started criming again.
Tasmanian devils. They just spun their way into the Americas. That's
just so stupid. Like, there was a giant flotilla full of like psychopaths they dumped off on the regular. 25 to 35. Think about the volume of people we've had in by general numbers, somewhere between like 10 and 11 million undocumented people in the United States at any given time forever. That's been the number, because people die, people
70s.
move back, people come and go, people get scared, people get locked up. There's a bunch of different reasons why it's a rotating number. And there's only that amount of work. There's only that amount of like drudgery work that will sustain about 11 million people. You get 13 to 15, they're walking the streets. Like, they've got nowhere to go and nothing to do, right? And so the idea that we have on top of that 10, because right now it's 10.43, that's the last number I saw, real legit numbers.
Yes.
He says 25 to 35 plus million more on top of that. Well, where are they? Because you're sending hundreds of people to go get 3 people in a city. Even if you're rounding up 10,000 undocumented people.
I'll give you one better. In Minneapolis, there may be 100,000 tops of illegal
undocumented people.
Yeah, undocumented people, tops in the entire state. There's 1.2 million, I think, in Texas, about the same number in Florida. You don't see ICE on the streets there. So to me, this has never been about immigration. It's about intimidation and the chance to suppress the vote come November.
Well, I think there's also another factor about pushing his own voters, because they have lost a lot of steam. His numbers are down. And one of the reasons his numbers are down is he promised giant plane loads, a reverse flotilla, if you will, of just like barges full of humans back to Guatemala or wherever the hell the caravans were allegedly from.
Because they're taking all the jobs, and they're lazy, and they're sapping the social work and not working all in the same sentence.
That's right. They're unemployed and overworked. It's amazing. They're starting to sound more and more like regular Americans. But again, he promised these like boatloads and plane loads and rounds up of hundreds of thousands of people, right? And they're buying up warehouses all over the place, these giant warehouses that DHS is, to hold 1,000 people. In a warehouse, by the way, that could probably hold, if you put a bunch of cots in there, 5 to 10,000 people. But if you look at the size of the building, but don't know the number of people they're putting in there, from a maggot standpoint, you're like, we're filling that place up and they're getting them the hell out of here. That's the closest he can come, because they have to have these opaque things. And so one of the reasons why he needs Congress people to not go in there and look around is because if they film what's in there, you're going to see that there's not a lot of people in there. And a lot of them are families and the like, they're not criminals. You wouldn't put violent criminals on cots together, because they would 6 of them would go, we can get out of here in 10 minutes. Like, it's even in Alcatraz, like, you're telling me a bunch of, like, you're going to put 100 MS-13 guys in the same tent and they're not going to come up with a plan to escape through the alligators? Jesus Christ, the alligators would run. But the point is, his own voters are pissed off. I've seen Nick Fuentes and other people going, there are no mass deportations.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yes, there aren't mass deportations. And so he's got to get his own voters to think he's doing something. And so these big like shows of force and these macho Pete Hegseth horseshit, where they're running around with, like they're doing a military operation on American soil. The reason they're doing that is because they're hedging their bets on the danger of a few to cover the lack of giant numbers that he promised. That's what's happening. And look, the people that are here that are allowed to vote, like Americans of Latino and Hispanic descent, or naturalized citizens, or that are from Africa or East Asia or wherever the place he seems to be targeting, are not going to be intimidated come election day, and they're going to probably show up and vote his ass out. No matter what the intimidation is, he's not going to scare the people with the real right to vote. Some
Flipping
people might
Texas,
question it.
the state state
That's
senate
right.
is a
Exactly
indicator
that.
of that. Yeah,
That's right. And I've said for a long time, if there are so many people that are like Democrats in a red district who are like, why bother voting because they're, I'm outnumbered. And there's a person two houses down thinking the same thing, and a person two houses down that's also thinking the same thing. But because they're in a quote unquote red district and there's a bunch of red hats running around, they don't talk openly, when they see at the grocery store about the government the way they would have in the 80s or the 70s even. They keep their mouth shut. And so they not only do they not share their discontent, but they also don't realize how much of their discontent they do share.
you're
And if
right.
they had any idea how many Democratic voters there were in their area, and those Democratic voters had any idea how their neighbors really felt and really want to vote, they would be motivated in Texas. And that's exactly what happened. Trump is actually motivating a voter base that has been heretofore invisible because of the extremity of what he's doing.
Are you saying that Donald Trump may go down in history as the most motivating president?
Yes, for Democrats. Yeah, maybe. It's about goddamn time. Which is why I think Democrats by and large are going on about how awful he is, because that's one of the things that will get those voters.
Well, I hear MAGA, my MAGA friends and relatives have begun to quietly, say the quiet part out loud. As you said, not willing heretofore to say anything bad against him because they liked what he was doing. But after the shootings in Minneapolis, after what he said about the NRA, after Marjorie Taylor Greene has come forward.
Yeah.
Marjorie Taylor Greene said, she signaled MAGA, basically saying that, there is no four-dimensional chess. There is no grand plan. She was telling members of the MAGA movement that the emperor has no clothes, and they're beginning to listen. And I'm hearing it more and more. It's a murmur. It's a whisper. But I think that is one of the reasons why I think he's going to, between now and November, continue to press issues outside. I mean, I think he will burn it all down to rule over the embers.
Yes. Here's the problem. It's a problem of his own making, though, because he ran as a non-interventionist, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is another one of these people who was like,
America first.
Yeah, and we were supposed to stay out of these forever wars or stop mucking around in other countries and no regime change and all that kind of stuff. And he's doing exactly that. The problem he has created is that he has run on an anti-wag the dog ticket. And they remember because it mattered to them. There's a couple of things, I think, that most voters, if a politician runs on it and then they're unable to do it, even if they ran on it, they're like, okay, I recognize that it's difficult and it's not an active choice by the president. He was only able to do as much as he wants. But if you run on something and then you actively go against it, which is what he's doing with Maduro, which is what he's thinking about doing in Cuba, certainly.
He's saying he's not, but he actually is.
Right.
Exactly. Well, they see the difference between the word and the action.
They absolutely do. And even if they pretend not to, they do. And that's the other thing. That's our job as well, is to remind them that they're not, ironically, to remind them that they're not as stupid as they want to be.
Well, there's some people that test that, but yeah,
I agree. No. I'm talking about a specific group of people. That's what Hillary Clinton was talking about with the basket of deplorables. There are people that fuck them, forget it. It's there. You're never going to reach them. And again, those people, like I said, I don't need them to see the light. I just need them to see the lie. Those people will stand down. They're not going to vote with us, but they may not vote at all, or they may, vote for something lesser, or just, again, most of them will just not bother this time. They have the same problem we had with the lethargic voters on the Democratic side with Kamala running.
Yes. Well, there's another issue for another day. We should talk about that as we come to the end of the hour. Well, I want to ask you what I asked you during when I was putting together the documentary of the first 100 days. Where do you see us a year from now?
I honest to God, I more than likely see us with a President Vance who's the lamest of lame ducks in the history of the country. Like a Dan Quayle level presidency, where Democrats are in charge of the House and the Senate. JD Vance has no ability to marshal the troops the way Trump did. No matter, he'll go out and rallies, and there'll be a bunch of them who try desperately to be as excited to see JD Vance as they were to see Donald Trump. And it's just like, trying to unclog a sink with a Vienna sausage. It's not gonna work.
For your lips to God's ears. Anyway, what do you want to plug, Hal?
Infotainmentwars.com. We don't need the documents. We have everything memorized. And of course, my live stream, which I do about 20 hours a week. So you can catch me almost anytime. But if you subscribe on the YouTube channel, would really help get my numbers up. Because until I clear 100K on my channel, there are a bunch of people that aren't going to take me seriously. And so that's my goal for this year, is to get my, my subscriber numbers up. Even though I'm across, the reason my numbers are kind of marginal is because they're all real people. And the other reason is because I'm on Facebook. I stream on Facebook. If you want to go to the Hal Sparks page, I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/Hal Sparks. And of course on YouTube at Infotainment Wars. And then on Rumble, I even have a channel there just to mess with them. And if Truth Sinkhole decides they're going to allow live streaming, watch out.
Well, that said, we've come to another end of Just Ask the Question. I want to thank you for joining us. Hal Sparks, always fun, brother. Always,
thank you.
Always a good time.
Anytime. As a fellow Kentuckian,
we got to do that podcast.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
We'll do this. That'll be our cleanup podcast after all this madness is over with. We'll do our Kentucky podcast.
We'll get through the madness first. Anyway, this is Just Ask the Question. I'm your host, Brian Karem. We'll catch you next time.